Welcome everybody to our Lunch and Learn with WrenchWay of how to attract more technicians to your shop. I'm going to pass it over to Jay and he's going to get us started.
All right. Thank you everybody for having me. It's a pleasure to not only be presenting today, but be new partners with you guys, right? I think that's it's really cool. I think from afar, I'm actually located up in Wisconsin. Being able to see what the association does down in North Carolina kind of sets the tone for what the rest of the industry should be doing, right? You guys do just a phenomenal job in North Carolina. So kudos to you. As far as what we're here to talk about today, we're going to talk about how you find more technicians. I'm sure none of you struggle with this. It's probably a really, really easy thing and you never have to deal with it, right? Probably, I'm being somewhat sarcastic there. It is a challenge. And so we'll go through some different ways that we've found to be successful in finding technicians. And hopefully you learn something. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I know Maddie's monitoring the chat and we'll try to get to those. We'll probably hold off on answering them during the presentation, but we'll maybe take some breaks, see if we've got any questions and kind of go from there. So just a real quick introduction to me. My name is Jay Ganinen. I am the founder and president of Find a Wrench and the co-founder and president of WrenchWay. So we have two different companies that kind of have the same goal, which is to help shops find technicians, but they go about it in different ways. So today we're really focused on the WrenchWay side and showing you a little bit about that platform, what it does, and how you can use it to incorporate it into your hiring plan. As far as me, I grew up in the industry. My dad still operates his small independent shop up here in Wisconsin. I'm still active within the shop. I'm not there on a daily basis by any means, but love to stay abreast of everything that they've got going on and what the industry's got going on. I like to kind of joke that I got started in this industry at a really young age, and that my dad didn't have money to hire anybody. So I was answering the phones and filling out deposit slips and scheduling appointments. Still joke that I used to put in the schedule LOF, and I didn't know that meant lube oil filter. I just knew that it took a half an hour of the schedule. So I would write it in and then schedule it for my dad. So been around it for a long time. Actually started my career as a technician. Not a very good one, but I started as a technician, graduated through different roles in both the automotive and diesel industries, have a little bit of experience with working directly for a manufacturer, also have a lot of experience with independents and fleets as well. So just kind of a broad level of my experience anyways. All of that brought me to starting Find a Wrench in 2017. And essentially what the reason we did that was because I myself was having trouble finding technicians. I could not find technicians for the life of me unless I was spending time on Saturday nights or early Sunday mornings going through resumes and trying to engage with techs, and just always found it a struggle. Funny side note is we named it Find a Wrench because when I was a kid, my dad said he couldn't find a darn wrench anywhere, right? And he was referring to mechanics. And so it's kind of a play on words from back when I was a kid, but we evolved, grew as a company to the point to where we then co-founded with my business partner, Mark Wilson, incredibly smart guy, had a lot of his own success prior to entering our business, but really wanted to put together a platform that would allow shops to essentially sell themselves to technicians. And that's ultimately what that is. On top of that, I am the host of a podcast called Beyond the Wrench. We really just focus on helping shop owners and managers make their businesses better, right? What can we do to bring people in to talk about what they're strong about? And so we put a weekly podcast out, and we also put out a weekly YouTube show called WrenchWay Weekly. Basically, WrenchWay Weekly is a show where we talk about the voice of technician, right? We listen to technicians. We have a WrenchWay Insiders app where we get that information from them. We ask them what they love about the industry and maybe what they don't love about the industry. and talk about it in that show. And we're able to aggregate data that we get from our WrenchWay insiders and turn it into a show to really offer education to the industry based on good, candid feedback from technicians themselves. As far as the agenda for today, we are going to first start by just understanding why there's an issue, right? Why is there an issue with us finding technicians as shops? And what can we do to really alleviate that strain and that pressure that most shop management has in trying to find technicians? And it really starts by understanding what a technician is looking for in the first place, right? We'll dive into that. We'll give you some key action items that you can take home with you and integrate in your shop immediately. And we'll show you just a couple of examples of shops that are currently using the platform and how they're using it. So as I stated in the agenda, we're going to start with just understanding why there's a shortage in the first place, right? And there's a couple reasons as to why. And I think some of them are really, really well advertised, but maybe aren't clear on what they are, right? And so the three kind of prongs that we talk about, first being not enough techs coming into the industry, second being we're really struggling to keep the ones we have in the industry. I think that might be even more important than getting new talent in. And then we've got the baby boomers that are retiring at a rapid rate right now, and that's creating even more of a gap than what we need, right? Or than what we have. So when you look at this, there really are three different opportunities or areas to improve on as an industry. I'm passionate about trying to help improve the industry because we need to. There's some things that we're just not very good at. There's a lot that we are, but there are some things we need to focus on. And so when we look at the technician as a pie chart here, right? We look at the whole demographic and excuse me, when we look at this, because of the shortage, this is kind of what we see out there is that a quarter of people, 25%, are really, really happy. They're not going anywhere. Those are the people we love. That's the people we want to take care of, right? Because they really, really love the industry. On the opposite side of that, we've got the 2% that frankly aren't that happy, and maybe they're perpetually unhappy to where they're always looking for jobs. That's a lot of what you see on job boards, and maybe people that are just job hopping quite a bit, if you will. But the piece of the pie that we really want to focus on is that 73% that are oftentimes, they're employed, they're getting a paycheck, but they're not overly happy, right? They look at, maybe the grass is greener on the other side. And so we really need to focus on this and really try to understand it and understand how do we make this better for a technician. Now, one stat that I will add about the technicians entering the industry is that once we get them here, that's another stage where we need to improve. We need to get better. And that is ASE has a stat that 42% of technicians leave the industry within the first year. That's troublesome. So all of these people we're trying to get in, we're not keeping them once they're here. Almost half of the people we're not keeping. And on top of that, we're looking at a skills gap, and maybe this has something to do with some of the consolidation, but there's a stat from Bolt-On Technology that more than half of independent automotive repair shop owners are expected to retire in the next 9 years. So within the next decade, more than half of independent shop owners want to get out. So a lot of things here, right? There's a lot of variables as to why we can't find technicians. So as I mentioned, that 73% is really important that you stick out to, because if you have a good shop, you have a good culture, you have a fun place to work at, you might turn that one of those people in that 73% category into that 25% that's happy and really not going anywhere. They love where they work at. We want more of that. We need more of that as an industry to make sure that we keep those people here. So when you start to look at how how do you appeal to that 73% that's maybe content but not happy? One, you got to start by understanding who they are, right? What is the demographic that you're looking at? And a lot of times in marketing, we're really good at that side, right? We take a marketing approach to understanding your demographic and really attacking that. What we're saying is the same thing on the technician side, right? You need to take some time and think about who is that target demographic. And as we pointed out in the chart, they're probably already employed. They probably already have a pretty good paying job if they're good at their job. But they might think that the grass is greener on the other side, right? They might be looking at other opportunities through Facebook groups or through Indeed ads or other job ads. But oftentimes we make it really, really difficult for that individual to come apply with us. And sometimes it's not even having a job posted out on the website, on your website. That's one that drives me absolutely crazy. If you ask any of our clients or any of our team, that's one of my big pet peeves is somebody comes to us for help, but they don't even have it on their own website. And that's something I can't stress enough is get your jobs out on the website. But once they do get through that and they want to apply to your job, it means more to a technician to when they apply, right? It means that more work is coming. It means that they're probably going to have to update their resume, which in some cases, some of them just don't have a resume. So then they're trying to come up with something from scratch. And sometimes it's just a lot of work, right? That could also mean that maybe they don't have the latest version of Microsoft Word on their computer. So they've got to figure out how they even get that uploaded and, remember passwords to stuff. And it's really, really difficult. It also means that they're probably going to have to take some time off of work. And different than what a white collar job is, when you're looking at a technician, every single minute of their day is accounted for in most cases. So they have to come up with some weird excuse as to why they're not going to be in work that afternoon. And it's just an awkward process. And so when they hit apply, that's when that realization, when it really sinks in that this is real. I'm hitting apply. And when I do, somebody's going to call me and I'm going to have to set up an interview and I'm going to have to go through this whole awkward process. So there is a lot of barriers to that technician applying to that job. And I'd say it's really until you make it easier to apply to your job, then until the pain exceeds, when the pain exceeds at their current position, what it is to apply for that new job is when something happens. And sometimes that never happens. We just kind of become paralyzed. So they're only going to apply to a new position if they're really confident that they want to go to this place and they're willing to go through the work that it takes to get that new job. And so when we look at a typical recruiting process for technicians, they break down into these 5 stages that are, pretty common. The awareness side that we talk about, that's what we do on the Find a Wrench side, where we're getting your job out everywhere. But you could be doing this at your own shop where you're posting out to maybe Craigslist or Indeed or wherever you might think you'll find techs. Put it out there. They'll send an application in. You'll review the application, look it over, see if it's somebody that you want to talk to. If they are, then you'll call them, set up the interview process. If you love them, you'll offer them the job. In some cases right now, because people are so desperate for techs, maybe they don't even love them. They're just trying to get a warm body in the door. So, excuse me. I'm going to take a drink of water here. So what happens there is they oftentimes don't even get past the awareness stage, right? It's really, really hard to stick out when you're looking at job ads. And especially if you live anywhere that has any level of population, there's going to be hundreds of jobs for technicians that you're going to be essentially competing against, right? And so what you really need to focus on is that consideration gap. And we talked about this similar to if you're buying a house or if you're buying a car. A lot of the research is done up front, right? We actually say that in our research that 90% of the buying process when you're looking at a house or if you're looking at a car is done up front. And then it's kind of down to the paperwork after that, right? You're kind of, hey, you know what? I'm really interested in this. I got financed. I'm all good. I can go do this. But we don't do a very good job of that when we're trying to attract new technicians. We don't do a good job of giving them the information they need in order to make an educated decision, to do their due diligence. And so, that's where you can do a number of different things. But the biggest key takeaway that I would say is building in that consideration gap, being able to try to give them the information they need in order to make an educated decision as to whether they want to come work for you or not. We talked about different types of jobs, right? And this is actually for a diesel technician in the Chicago area. And diesel technicians are actually less popular, in terms of how many jobs are out there. But as you can see here, there's 403 different jobs. If you're a diesel tech in that area, where do you even start? You just start browsing through. There's a number of different things that you can do, but the current consideration stage is really just maybe putting a heart next to the Indeed job ad, and you might do that to 10 different shops and then start comparing the shops, but it really doesn't give you a whole lot of information. It then requires even more research to go to the company's website, and hopefully the company's website is maybe has some level of it geared toward technicians, but for the most part, they're customer facing, as they should be. You're trying to get more business in the door and you're trying to cater to that business. And then lastly, they might read reviews, right? And typically with reviews, you're probably not always getting the most positive, because I think it's pretty well known that if somebody's happy, they're far less likely to fill out a review than if somebody's not happy. So say if you'd let a technician go in the past and they go out to Glassdoor, which if you don't know Glassdoor, I would check it out. It's a review site. Just make sure that you respond to the comments that are out there, if there are. But you really, really want to, it's so hard with reviews to be able to manage those. And so if they're looking at them, there's a chance that they're not getting the most positive image of your shop. In some cases you do. Some shops are really, really good at pushing positive reviews from the customer side and from the employee review side. But if you're not in that kind of realm, you might want to look at it. It is really, really hard to manage. But ultimately, you need to give techs a better understanding of what your job is, of what you're offering. And you need to do it in a way that stands out from the other 402 different people that are on that site. So now that we kind of know what a tech is looking, or what kind of tech we're looking for, we need to kind of dive into what technicians are looking for, right? When you do put this information out there, what is it that's going to appeal to them and what's going to make them happy? And I'm going to stop for just 1 second. Maddie, do we have any questions yet?
I do not see any in the chat.
Perfect. All right. I just want to make sure I wasn't skimming over that. So let's take a look at what technicians are looking for when they go to a shop. As you can see here, I think this pie graph kind of splits it off maybe a little differently than what our focus areas are, right? In most cases, with the shops we deal with, they stick with that compensation side, right? And you kind of get into that price war and trying to find a technician. But in our WrenchWay Insiders poll, we found that 58% actually found work environment to be the most important thing to them. So who they're working for, who they're working with, what the shop's like in general. And so I think it's really, really common for us to stick on the compensation side. You do have to be competitive with your wages, right? If you're not competitive, they're not even going to look at your work environment. So being able to really understand what is great about your work environment, what's different about your work environment is key. And there are other things that are important, but when it comes down to it, work environment is a big, big deal, and something that as shop owners and managers, we might not put enough emphasis into. So we actually do have a WrenchWay Weekly that we did about this. It's out on our YouTube page. I encourage you to go check it out. It does talk about this type of stuff and gives you some good statistics on what people are looking for. So salary and benefit, or compensation and benefits, right? This is something that we saw was 15% of that graph, and is something that, I kind of mentioned this at the top, but salary is really, really important, right? It's what keeps food on the table. It gets you your home. It provides heat for that home. There's a lot of different things that salary does for you. So you have to be competitive with that. Make sure you're doing some research and knowing that you're competitive in that. We do deal with more so on the finder edge side, maybe some shops that think they're more competitive than what they really are. And what I mean by that is they think they've got a really, really good salary, but when they get out there and do a little bit of research in the market, they find that that might not always be the case. We're also seeing shops, and really what techs are looking for are some more creative benefits, right? So when we say creative benefits, maybe some flexible scheduling, right? So we've seen more shops going to 4 10-hour days, or giving a tech maybe an option of how they can work. I remember talking to a tech who is a master level Mercedes tech, and the shop wouldn't let him have Wednesdays off. His wife had actually passed away, and he had responsibilities for his daughter during that Wednesday, and they would not budge on it. He did not go there. So that is a really, really big deal. Talk to those individuals, treat them as individuals. Uh, Paid certifications are a big deal, right? We actually have a big client of ours up in the Northeast that pays for all ASC certification tests, exams, whether they pass them or not. They're trying to encourage their people to go take the exams, and because they're important to that shop. So another kind of creative way to maybe look at that. Paid school involvement. So maybe if you have a tech that's passionate about the industry in general, allow them to get outside of their, outside the confines of the shop, to be able to get out there and talk to some people about it. It's really, really hard because we're so driven by gross profit and making sure that we are profitable on the service end of our business, that sometimes this can kind of go by the wayside. Allow them to kind of spread their wings a little bit, because I think that gives them some pride in your shop and the industry, and is really a cool thing to do. And then lastly, make sure you research benefits. And even if you think you can't afford some level of benefits, right? It's not hard to look into them, especially if you contact a professional that knows what they're talking about. So if you don't currently offer health insurance, why is that? Common rebuttal to that is, you know what, we can't afford it. We can't afford health insurance. It's just out of our budget and not something we're going to be able to offer. Listen, if you've got maybe a young person that is supporting a family, health insurance is a big deal to them. And so if you don't offer that, if you don't offer health insurance, that's taking away from anything that you can offer to that technician. And so really, good technicians kind of expect this stuff now, right? It's not like they're asking for it. They can go down the road and find another shop that does offer health insurance. So make sure you're digging into it. And I mean, I'm just using health insurance as an example. There's a bunch of other examples that you can do the research on fairly cheap, either through the internet or through a professional, to understand, well, can I truly not afford this? Or by not getting this, am I restricting the level of talent that can come into my shop? And if that's the case, you might want to look at ways that you can make your shop more profitable to be able to afford these and be able to give these benefits. 401k tool reimbursement. There's a number of different benefits that are really, really important. And the more you can sweeten that deal for a technician that you're looking at coming to work for you, the better off you're going to be. Uh, this one is an interesting one: career development. And I think we pick on millennials a lot for wanting to know kind of what the vision for their future is. But in my experience, it's all ages, right? You've got that individual that's maybe 58 years old, and maybe their body is starting to break down a little bit. And you need to know, like, that person wants to know what their career path is to get them to retirement, right? So if their body's starting to get beat up, are there opportunities that you can work with them on, getting them into more diagnostic work, or getting them on less labor intensive work to help them get to that retirement level? I think that's hugely important, but it is really, really important to younger generations. They want to know what their purpose is. They want to know how long they're, expected to work in that position, and how they can get through their career and keep growing, keep advancing, that's really, really important to them. Career development plans are a way of kind of mapping that out, right? And we're actually, I'm actually going to be doing some presentations on this coming up on just career development plans, because this can be a big deal, right? And so when we talk about that, we're essentially laying out the roadmap for that person's career. Obviously, things are going to vary, things are going to change, but it helps you hold them accountable, and it helps them hold you accountable. It helps you hold them accountable as well, right? And so being able to go back and look at that plan, and a career development plan doesn't have to be something that's just crazy and overwhelming. It can be simple as writing it down on paper, and then being able to set a reminder to follow up with it every month or every 3 months or every 6 months, however much you want to do it, but to check in with them and really have a good enough relationship with that technician to make sure that that you understand what it is that they want. And a really, really good program should share the vision for your shop, right? If you're a shop that is growing and maybe you're one location right now, but you have future goals of being a three-store operation, make sure you share that with them. A lot of times shop owners and managers will kind of hold that close to their vest, when they should be painting that and really giving them the ideas of, why is this important to me? Well, if that person wants to grow and they want to grow into different roles, maybe there's roles that you don't even currently have that will be available. You also want to give clear expectations as to what is expected of that person to reach these levels. So if it's based on certifications, or if it's based on just their general ability, and be candid in those conversations, right? You don't want to hold things back. Of course, be professional about it. Make sure that you're doing it in a professional setting, not just kind of walking by in the shop and like, hey, what do you want to do in 10 years? Make sure you're talking about it, and really make it an active, living, breathing document. Check in regularly. Just like I said, set yourself reminders. Make sure you hold yourself accountable to that, because that is critically important. If you do all the work on the career planning and don't actually do anything after that, it's going to be really, really difficult once you try to re-engage with them, because they don't see the execution. And lastly, be flexible. Things change, and so do technicians' lives. Their aspirations change. It's important to just have those active conversations. As we saw on the pie chart, work environment was the biggest piece, right? That was the thing that most technicians, or I shouldn't say most, but the majority of technicians really listed as important to them: who they're working for, who they're working with, all of the things that go into work environment. The first step is to listen to the techs, understand what they like, understand maybe what they don't like, and then take action from there, right? Don't just listen to them and use, become a sounding board. Sometimes that is good, but make sure out of those conversations, you take actionable steps to be able to hopefully make their lives easier. And there are some things that don't cost a lot of money that you can do. We implemented here, excuse our language, but the no asshole rule. And so with customers, with employees, it's just a simple, I actually read a book called The No Asshole Rule. That's how we got that. But it is truly trying to make their lives easier by not accepting some of the folks that are a little tougher on them. Heat and air conditioning. Again, this might be a research thing. My dad's small independent shop up here in Wisconsin actually has air conditioning. It's not common for a shop in Wisconsin to have air conditioning, because it's only warm like 3 months out of the year, right? So it is something where they found an air conditioning unit that hooked onto their furnace was far cheaper than what I think even my dad would thought it would be. But it really improves productivity and comfort levels during those really, really hot summer months. And then the up-to-date equipment and technology is huge, right? If it helps them do their job better and it's easier to do their job better, it's worth it. There is so many advances in technology right now, and I'm preaching to the choir here, I'm sure, but having the right equipment to do things is a big, big deal. So we're going to talk about some action items. So far we talked about, why there's a technician shortage. We talked about what a technician looks for in your shop, all very, very important things, but none of it matters unless you go back and put some of it to work, right? And really, it starts with tracking your progress. The technician shortage isn't going to get better overnight. There is a drastic shortage, and for the reasons that we talked about at the top of the presentation, it's hard to find these people, and you need to have some level of process to be able to continually look for good technicians. It's pretty well known throughout our industry. A lot of people talk about always be recruited. Very few actually do it. But it all starts with holding yourself accountable to a plan. And you can use your own method. We actually have an activity tracker within our our WrenchWay app, excuse me, that our members get, where they can hold themselves accountable. They can put their goals into the tracker and then kind of track their progress as they go, similar to what a fitness app does, where you're going into the gym and making sure that you're doing this amount of push-ups or this amount of cardio, whatever it is. You're holding yourself accountable to it. And so the more you can do that, the more you can create videos, the more you can talk about your team, promote your team, the more you can do the research on those other benefits that might help draw better talent, the better off you're going to be. So I think it's just, I can't stress this enough. It is vital to execute. It's vital to continually be looking at and doing these types of things. The other piece is the awareness stage, right? Be everywhere. You have to cast a wide net. It is brutal to find these technicians. And so the more you can be everywhere, and when we say be everywhere, all of the major job boards. So if you can be on an Indeed, a ZipRecruiter, a Career Builder, whatever it is, we do have a technician specific job board at Find a Wrench that you can have some success on. But any of these job boards, if you kind of set it and forget it, I think you're going to be disappointed with your results. And so it takes that constant effort. Again, back to the activity tracker. Are you doing these things on a consistent basis? On Indeed, it's really easy to be on the end of the 5th page by the end of the first day, right? And that might mean going back out and reposting jobs, getting your job back to the top. It does take work to do that and get that visibility. Social media is obviously a big deal right now. There's more technicians on LinkedIn than I think most people think, and they're sometimes hard to find, right? But being able to talk to them, build a relationship with them prior to actually having a need is a big deal. If you go out and try to sell somebody, I get spam messages on LinkedIn, multiple spam messages on LinkedIn every day of people trying to sell me stuff immediately. And there's no effort at building a relationship. Same thing can be said with trying to find techs. Make sure you're building relationships. Facebook and LinkedIn give you great opportunities to interact with technicians, add comments. It does take time, but it is worth it. And there's a lot of groups out there that are technician specific. Those are the ones you want to get involved with. Really be active with those. Another point is employee referrals. They are more effective than any other type of recruiting. And when I say that, when they hear it directly from somebody that works for you, it just hits differently, right? And even if you ask them to share a job posting through a Facebook page, for instance, you're gonna get more eyes on your job. It's based on the algorithms from Facebook. They're gonna put a person's friends posts far above your posts as a company, right? And it's because their job is to keep you on the app as long as they possibly can. And they think by spamming them with businesses, they're probably not going to do that. So you can pay for advertising. That gets expensive quick, especially if you don't know what you're doing. And so, asking for employee referrals, and that could come through word of mouth. That could come through maybe somebody referring through a Facebook post. Ask them. We'll touch on that a little bit. And there's just a huge impact with employee referrals. Getting involved with schools is a major factor. Even if the ROI isn't hey, you know what, I'm going to get this tech tomorrow. It is important to build that relationship, be on their advisory committees, be a resource for them, so that when they do have that good student that they're trying to place, that you're top of mind. The one thing that I hear from tech instructors all the time, every week, is that it comes graduation time and they have a pile of shops calling them, asking them for their best student. It's not just one shop, it is all of them. And so I talked to a tech school instructor about 2 weeks ago, and he said, Jay, you know what? I've had 16 calls from shops asking for my best student. And he said, what I'd like to tell them is that that student's already been taken, or the top of the class has already been taken far before this. There were shops that were active getting people in the program and already had jobs with those shops. So being intentional, working with high schools to help get people into the tech school programs, a huge deal at your in your location, right? It's just it's so important for the health of our industry that you get involved with schools at the local level, that I just I can't overstate that. It's just a really big deal. Lastly, WrenchWay will show you a little bit about what that's all about, but just a kind of a new way to market to technicians and show them what you've got. So showing off what you have is the next slide, right? And in a recent WrenchWay Insiders poll, we asked technicians, in your opinion, do most job postings include enough information to know if it's a good fit for you to apply? 75% said no. That's insane that most technicians don't think any job post gives them enough information for them to hit apply. And that 75% of people saying no, that's probably those folks that have those jobs that, like we talked about earlier, that it becomes real when they get to that. We did a WrenchWay Weekly on this one as well. That's out on the YouTube page. But the big piece is that you've got to get comfortable with transparency. And when we say that, giving information that sometimes is uncomfortable, but ultimately helps the technician make an educated decision. In WrenchWay, we talk about the different categories. We talk about compensation, benefits, work environment, obviously work environment being pretty important, career development, your hiring process, giving them visual tours of your shop, and really being able to get videos out there so that you can show them rather than try to tell them in text what your shop is all about. You also need it to be authentic. It can't be some marketing pitch or marketing led video where you're hearing from the owner only, and the owner talks about how well they manage the shop and everything like that. Sometimes that goes in one ear and out the other. You need to make sure you're showing them what's different about you. Involving your team is a big deal. Giving them recognition, when we talk about recruiting, one of the biggest pieces is retaining the people you already have, right? So make sure you're giving the people that are on your team kudos to show them that you love them and show them that, you know what, they mean a lot to your business, and that's that your business doesn't operate without technicians, right? And then lastly, when we talk about videos, it's really important that you don't try to overthink this, right? A lot of times when somebody's trying to make videos, they'll try to make up a plan and create, this big elaborate thing. What works far better is if you just document the things that are going on in your shop already. So if you take your iPhone and walk around and snap videos of your technicians doing work, or even just talking to them, getting the personalities out there, I actually think that can help with your customer relations as well if customers get to know your techs. But really important that you just document your day, and you can do that with video. It works really effectively, and in our experience, it's been a big deal. So we're going to show just a couple of quick examples of WrenchWay pages to kind of show you what they're all about, right? And the first one that we're going to look at is for Diesel Forward. These are public, so you can go out and check them out, check out some in your area. The platform itself is about a year old, so it's still a growing platform, but there's some companies that have just done a knockout job with these and done a really good job. In this example, you can kind of see they've got their logo, address, links to their website, that kind of thing. Make it easy for a technician to go do more research. There's a brief about us. The photos part is really cool because it gives you the opportunity to kind of give that behind the scenes tour of your shop, and not just the front office, right? We want you to show examples of why your shop is easy to work in. Like, what, if you give a tour, one of the things I'll show in my dad's profile here is that he's got a new John Bean alignment machine. When I worked there 20 years ago, We did not have that. We had an old Hunter that we had to recalibrate the heads on every time you put them on, and then you'd have to recalibrate them again because something didn't sync, and it was just a mess. So it was really, really tough. Showing that is a big deal to a technician. Now, the under the hood section is where we break down the 5 different categories. So we talk about compensation, and we want the talk about compensation to be real, candid talk, discussion about it. So you're listing out what you would pay an A level, B level, C level tech. You can get down to service writers, service managers. You can break them all out into different categories. But not only that, you get to talk about how you pay them, right? So if you're paying some level of flat rate, or if you're paying hourly plus a bonus, or just straight hourly, you get to talk about that, and you get to really explain why you think this is impactful for a technician. Diving into benefits, not just what days they get off for holidays, but the actual days, right? So not how many days you get off, but the actual days that you do get off. Just health insurance, what's the split between the employer and the employee? Giving them that due diligence. I love this category from the standpoint that when I used to interview techs for myself, they would love it and say, you know what, I've got to go home and talk to my spouse about this, about the benefit side, and I'll get back to you. This should be able to answer all of those questions up front. Work environment. We talked about that being extremely critical to a technician and their decision-making process. We break down everything from what hours they should be working to what the policy is on side work, right? So kind of that elephant in the room type thing where nobody likes to talk about it, but this just gets that out in the air so that a technician knows, hey, if you've got a really good side business and we don't allow side work, it's probably not going to be a good fit. But if you do, you know, maybe there's some flexibility there, and if you put parameters around it, I think you can control that. Career development and hiring process are 2 more really, really important categories that we dive into a great deal of information into. And when you answer these questions, they are truly meant to allow a technician to do their research on you. And I think in a lot of cases, a shop manager always says to us anyways that, hey, if I can get them inside our shop and show them what it's all about, I feel confident in being able to sell them on our opportunity. That's what these pages are for, even to really help get them engaged, get them understanding what it is that you offer. And I skipped over a slide. I use this slide as an example. This is actually my dad's little independent shop up here in Wisconsin. I use this because I'm probably most familiar with it. But here you can see they've got a lot of photos. They're in. I don't have the live version of it up here right now, but you can see it's got the photos of the back area, the shop area, the things that are important to a technician. A lot of detail in the under the hood section. And the reason I bring this one up is because we, at the top of the year, we developed a video element to these pages. This is something we're really, really excited about. And what the videos allow you to do is to talk about things in a really organic manner, right? These aren't overly produced videos. They're not meant to be overly produced videos. I shot these ones with my iPhone. And what we did was we talked about how they pay, what the work environment's like there. In the top photo, that's actually my dad with his service manager and service advisor talking about just that they have a fun, laid-back environment. But one of the things that they mention is that if you don't have thick skin, it's probably not a great place for you to work. I work there. I can totally attest to that. That was something that you definitely have to have thick skin to fit into that shop, because you're going to get a hard time and you're probably going to give a hard time. But we talk about other things too. We talked about what radio station they listen to in the shop, something that you might not think is important, but is really, really important when you ingrain yourself in the daily life there. Talking about why digital inspections are important to them, and why keeping a shop clean is really important to them. So you want to make sure that when somebody comes into your shop or comes into your page, that you're giving them a really, really good idea of what it's like to work there, and showing off the personalities of not only the management, but the techs that they'll be working alongside. We actually are producing right now video guides to be able to instruct you on how to use these videos. And there's just a lot of cool stuff. There's being able to give a monthly update with shout outs to the employees in your shop, and maybe pointing out one person in particular that did a really, really good job that month. Giving them that recognition, that helps your retention, and the video element here is a big deal as a result. So that's all I've got for my spiel on WrenchWay. If you do want to reach out, even if you just want to talk shop and maybe brainstorm on some of these ideas and how you can implement them in your shop, feel free to reach out. My email address is j@findaWrench.com. You can call me directly at 608-512-7330, or you can visit either of the WrenchWay or Find a Wrench websites to learn more. Maddie, did I cover enough, too much, or how are we sitting?
Well, so far it looks like you covered it so well that there's no questions.
Making my job easy today. I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody does have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself really quick and go ahead and ask away.
Yeah, and while we're kind of taking a minute here, I just want to say thank you to everybody for having me today. It really is fun for me to talk about this stuff and hopefully be able to help make your shops better at attracting talent. It's definitely a struggle out there right now, and I just think it's vitally important that you've got a plan and can really execute on that plan.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I posted something very similar today on our apprentice page about 42% of technicians leave within their first couple of years in the industry, and it's insane. And I think that we could definitely do a better job of making sure that we pair the correct technician with the correct shop and find a proper place for them, and make sure that people do know about your shop, and technicians most importantly know about your shop, especially if they are unhappy. There's a shop on every corner, and what makes you unique,
Well, and I'll add one last thing there. This was an exercise that I did when we could meet with people, right? When we could do presentations live. I just did my first one live about 2 weeks ago, again, which was really, really nice to be able to see people. But I did an exercise with a group in Minneapolis probably 3 years ago. And one of the things I did was I asked them to raise their hand if they offered a certain benefit, right? So we started with uniforms, and I said, hey, how many of you offer uniforms? Everybody raised their hand. So we started going through all the benefits, health insurance, 401k or retirement. We started going through, and they all had their hands raised the entire time, or most of them anyways, for most of the benefits. And I said, now look around, how unique are you? And it wasn't a slap at the shop to say, hey, you're not unique. Every shop's unique. They all have their own culture and their own way of doing business. It's just that at times I don't think very good at being able to explain that and explaining why you're unique. We put a lot of effort into that on the marketing side to customers. We really, really need to understand that and focus on pushing that to technicians as well.
I couldn't agree more. I don't see any questions in here. But thank you again, Jay. And we are happy to have you. Not quite the full lunch hour, but most of it. And I think that it was a lunch hour well spent. And I, again, will share this on our social media, as well as those who have registered for the event. I will share it with them just in case they missed part of it. And we'll go ahead and go for there.
That sounds great. Thank you so much, Maddie. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good day.
Thank you, Tricia. Yep. We'll talk to you later.